Welcome, everybody. It is one more week until the 2025 NCAA men's lacrosse season. And we've got plenty of predictions heading your way. You've heard the conference previews. Now it's time to get to the business end of things on the Crosse Commission podcast. We are looking live right now on YouTube as well as usual podcast outlets. I'm Ryan, joined by Safe and Jake, and we are going to get you prepared for the takes that you will completely throw back in our faces come in May.
Hey, boys. Good to be back on the mics with you guys.
Indeed. Go Commanders. Left hand up.
I didn't know when I was going to bring it up, but yeah, Jake, we have a rendezvous this weekend.
Any complaints about my predictions can be sent to Ryan at RyanMcD29. As usual, as always.
I do not have a rivalry conference championship to look forward to. I'm no way a Bills fan as a Jets fan. And again, I've been warning for years, and the Bills never pull it off. You're going to realize that they're just like Patriot fans. So, forewarning you guys.
You can send it to Ryan on Twitter or on Blue Sky. You can send it to Ryan anywhere. You can
on my private Instagram.
Yeah, find it on his Instagram. Anywhere you want to send it to Ryan. That's fine. Send it, carrier pigeon.
My New York City schools email address.
Don't do that. That's
bad idea. Yeah, that gets monitored. And then I got to report it for phishing or something.
Yeah, that's too far.
Yeah, you don't want to end up like the Day family.
What a come up.
Speaking of which, MMH in the chat says OSU finishes second
Mark.
in the Big Ten.
Come on, Ryan.
For example, on those hot takes.
Hey, Mark.
Safe. You gotta go all in now. Ryan Day went from looking like he was being assassinated to
literally it was getting death threats.
We're back, Jake. We're me and Ryan Day going to Ohio State's that hangover clip. We're back. This is Ryan Day's in the back, the Buckeye mascots and Ryan shotgun, and I'm driving to Ohio State's first game.
Well, the whole thing about it was Chip Kelly. Everyone forgot that Chip Kelly was the coordinator.
Listen, it's just salad days for us in 2025. I mean, Chip Kelly won a title.
Chip Kelly's
Eagles Commanders in the NFC Championship game. I mean, Syracuse is ranked number 2. I mean, we're all just doing great right now.
Chip Kelly is an old school safe bit.
Going way back. That's a deep one.
Going way back.
We ran Philly for a little while. Me and Chip. It was great. It was
the Hopkins connection with the Eagles. Man,
it was good to have a Hopkins man in charge of the Eagles. For the brief time that we had it. But
now everybody's gonna be talking about the UNH coaching tree.
Absolutely.
Only New
Ryan,
Hampshire.
What should the people do with this video before we get started? What should the people who are watching? What should they do on this video?
Well, they should hit that like button, subscribe to us because Saturday Night Power Hour is going to be coming back in full earnest very soon. Share it out, comment after the fact too. But yeah, definitely subscribe because this is going to be our home hub. So we had a good run with the Patreon, but now we're evolving into the YouTube page, and especially with social media starting to get more and more splintered, YouTube's kind of the consistent hub, and you'll catch all our content here. You can also subscribe to your podcast wherever you get them, whether that be Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
RIP Google.
You can subscribe to us to that too.
Gosh. Safe just popped up like
I may have to
that'll
do a hard stop on my computer, so I was going to jump in on via my phone, so I don't lose the flow.
Well,
that's showing new opportunities for streaming stuff. That for like gaming.
I just saw I'm seeing 2 saves on my.
Yeah, just so everyone at home can see.
Oh
Yeah.
the incredible quad box.
You got 2 saves here, and it's
2 saves. One's frozen, so we're gonna have to. Yeah, there we go. Now we
I'll
can.
shut my computer, but I'll still be here with you guys here, so we're good.
All right.
Love it.
This is what happens in live.
I think you just need your earbuds.
Probably, yeah.
Onto the phone. So while Safes gets set up and you don't hear any echoes, Jake, any news and notes in this week before? Anything from scrimmages that need to be shared out and about? Well, we got to unmute you. Oh, yep, Jake, you got to unmute yourself.
Was I muted?
Yes,
okay, am I good now? Yeah, I muted because when Safe was there was the echo, so I wanted to. Yeah, I saw Virginia had a announcement of 3 highly ranked freshmen. This was from Inside the Crosse. 3 of the top 20 recruits in the country are going to be missing the season due to its injury, or they're going to be redshirting in 2025. Ryan Dunkel, Kyle Colsey, and Sean Brown. Dunkel has had a lot of injury issues over the past couple of years. He hasn't really had a kind of consistent year of lacrosse in a while, kind of since his sophomore year. And so that's Dunkel and Colsey were their, are 2 the big incoming recruits they were looking to on the offensive side of the ball. Kyle Colsey is the younger brother of Ryan Colsey, who's on the Cavs roster. So those are pretty significant hits to potentially the Cavaliers, who obviously are replacing Connor Schellenberger, one of the preeminent top 3-4 attackmen in the country from last year or the past couple of years. You could argue the best attackman in Virginia history, best player in Virginia history. So a substantial loss for Virginia. And it leaves them with, and this is something we can certainly talk about when we get to predictions, poll, etc. We had, in terms of our Final Four, one of us, I won't spoil it, had Virginia in the Final Four. I think all of us had, if in our poll, this is not something that's a spoiler because we dropped it. The lowest, none of us had Virginia ranked lower than 6th. But Virginia's offense now looks something like McCabe Millen, Ryan Colsey, Truett Sunderland, Griffin Schutz, Johnny Hackett from Bryant, and Charles Balsamo transferring from Duke. That's a pretty, it's not, I wouldn't say unproven, because all those guys, McCabe Millen was a great player for them a year ago as a freshman. Colsey was their 6th leading scorer a year ago. Sunderland, to a degree, I would say unproven. The midfield is, they're going to have to rely on that a lot. Schutz has been a strong player for them at the midfield the last couple of years, All-American. Hackett, been a great player at Bryant, but that's certainly a step up in competition going from Bryant to Virginia. And then Balsamo was a guy who lost his spot at Duke to some incoming freshmen. He's transferring from Duke to Virginia, he's looking to, I would say, restart his career a little bit. So that's top 6 is the most kind of similar to, I think you could say, what Maryland has. We kind of talked about this last week with the Terps. The most question marks, kind of wide open, intriguing top 6 Virginia started, unproven could be another word, that Virginia started in, probably since Lars's first year. And even Lars's first year, they had, I think Crosse was on that team in Lars's first year, I want to say. So, and I think Laviano was there as well. I'll have to double check. But certainly those are, and even still, look, incoming freshmen, they would have had to prove themselves as well. But losing your top 3 incoming, I mean, that's me and Safe did, what was, I think 2 weeks ago, Safe was, I want to say on, when we did the Big East A10, we talked about no injury kind of, as we as these incoming practices started, and still haven't heard a lot, thankfully, but this is that's a, talk about, in terms of tough injury, luck, that's about a bet of, you can get losing your, right off the bat, just 3 of your incoming recruits to season-ending injuries. They kind of knew about Dunkel, kind of in the fall. That's it doesn't get much worse than that. And look, it's Virginia. No one's going to write off Virginia. You're not going to write off Lars Tiffany. Virginia always has talent, but certainly puts them in a difficult position. And we'll have to see how they, set themselves up. They're going to have to rely a lot on those transfers. Balsamo, Hackett, that midfield. And they're also going to have to rely on McCabe Millen to really, really, really fill the void that Connor Schellenberger is leaving behind.
We said it's going to be a big transition year for Virginia, and it's just kind of makes like the learning curve post Connor and that, just legendary class the last couple of years. Actually, last few years for Virginia. It's kind of always been like a reload, but still probably reloading to an extent, but there's usually more in the cupboard. You know what I mean? Like it's like its ability to like weather those departures from graduation or potential transfers, because you had a great core there, and there's still obviously weapons, and I think Millen is going to be a future star. But yeah, it's just like I think Virginia and Duke to an extent, it's just going to be a really interesting year, just how they're going to be able to like transition post super team era. And it's just bad start, but Lars, I feel like should be always never bet on Lars. Like it still feel there'll be a formidable team, but yeah, it's just not a good start. And as we always say, these late preseason news dumps, they kind of come out of the woodwork, but this was a big one. Luckily, as Jake, noted, we haven't had too many so far, but this is a significant one.
They can make or break your season, man. I mean, you've had last year Yale. I don't know if that made or break season, but Yale losing Chris Lyons, Leo Johnson. Obviously, the most infamous Penn State losing Grant Ament. These January, and some of them are, probably fall injuries as well, but nonetheless, they're tough.
Yeah, and especially with depth, because I feel like with Virginia, they have the top end talent this year, but the one question we were going to have with them.
Do they have the top end talent? Are they? Is the proven top end talent?
Not as much as they used to, though.
Is it? But, how many first team All Americans are on that Virginia team at the offensive side of the ball? Any?
The
first team.
On our second, Millen on ours, the third.
On ours, I'll tell you right now, none.
Yeah, not on the first team though. On the offensive side.
On the second, there's one. On the third, there's one. And even then, that's kind of projection.
Mm-hmm.
Release Ben Ware.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Like they got, they got talent on the they got talent on the defense. So offensively, top end talent. There's no Connor on that roster. There's no Peyton Cormier on that, it's the Rick Pitino quote. I mean, maybe. Look, maybe. That's the thing. Is McCabe Millen going to be that guy? If he is, then all problems solved. That's the question they're looking for. If he can put up 70, 80 points, you all of a sudden have taken care of a lot of your issues. And even how does the offense look too? Because that position that Cormier played, is the goal scorer. Laviano played that position. The position Xander Dixon played 2 years ago as the shooter. Who plays that role? The offense probably likely, will have to look a lot different. And Millen is a very gifted player. I think a very good shooter. Dodger shows signs of it. Schellenberger was pretty much all the way there by the end of his freshman year. That's what made him Connor Schellenberger. So,
but always had that benefit of like being on a stacked team, right? That's what I think made Connor so great, is that freedom to maybe have like the second or even the third best defenseman on you, just coming as a freshman and being able to get that confidence and ride. To both of your points, the lack of depth, like that could be a hindrance. You know what I mean? Like it's good to an extent to be pushed into the pool and maybe get in a position maybe a little bit just before you're ready, so that you can grow into it. But it's also just a great benefit of just being able to have that freedom. And I think that what happened with Millen last year to an extent, right? Like, so much attention on Connor allowed him to, be able to have just that. We were just talking about just that space that, these elite attackmen need. And, if you're able to have like a star like Connor taking so much of that attention, it allows you to grow in and, fill in those spots. And, what he did to Hopkins was just devastating. And I think like to an extent they, kind of controlled Connor, but it's like, it was allowed Millen to have that freedom and space. So maybe it just may not be as much space this year, especially, with the lack of depth. And now, some incoming freshmen they were expecting to contribute, not being able to get on the field.
No, he's gonna get the number one poll every game. What made Schellenberger impressive was he got the number one poll by the end of the year. No matter, anyway, by the time the tournament came around, he was
right.
He was getting teams
get that confidence.
It didn't matter.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. That confidence, and he obviously had the elite talent. But I don't know. I won't have ever bet against Lars, but it's going to be one of his more unique challenges, especially given the super team transfer era that we just got out of.
Goalie too. No one still talking about the goalie thing. You got a senior goalie who started
pulled
every game but one in his career, and the one is the Final Four his junior year. Kyle Morris played. I imagine it's got to be Kyle Morris. The Final Four game didn't go great, but I don't think that was anything on his end. But that's a big question.
All right. So the Crosse Commission top 20 that we dropped earlier in the week, want to share that out now? I got the graphic.
For all Americans first? Which All Americans or top 20? Which one we do first?
we haven't revealed the All-Americans yet, right?
Do it now.
Yeah, I guess that segues in nicely. So, Jake, well, actually, I have it up here. Let me just see.
Let's do it.
Let me get the All-Americans list.
And I can tweet it out right now.
Sounds good. Make sure it's view only so people aren't making edits to it.
I'm pretty sure it's view only. safe it's view only, right?
Yeah, you can't edit it, I think.
Okay, good.
If you click the one that we gave IL, you'll see a total team breakdown as well. The little tab.
There we go.
Yeah.
We also got some honorable mentions. So there is our first, second, third team plus honorable mentions. I'll read it out and then I'll let you guys discuss. First team All-Americans, we have CJ Kirst, Chris Kavanaugh, and Coulter McAsee on attack. Mikey Weissar, Evan Plunkett, and Jordan Faison on midfield. Will Coletti at Fogo. Aiden McGuire and Ben Ramsey at short stick midi. Ben Weyer at long stick midi. Scott Smith, Brendan Lavelle, and Sean Light at defense. And Emmett Carroll at goalie for our first team All-Americans. Second team, Joey Spallina, Owen Duffy, and Sam King on attack. Griffin Schultz, Devin McLean, and Sam English at midfield. Will Lynch at Fogo, Patrick Hackler and Casey Wilson at short stick D. Max Yates on long stick. Levi Virch, Ty Banks, and AJ Palat at defense. And Jack Fracon at goalie. And then third team, Chris Lyons, Nate Kabiri, and McCabe Millen at attack. Matt Collison, Michael Leo, and Hunter Droyan at midfield. Freddie Wambach at Fogo. Noah Chismar, Zach Gruno at short stick. Will Donovan at long stick. Colin Mulshine, Colin Burlace, and Richard Checo at defense. And Patrick Jameson at goalie. We also have honorable mentions with Ryan Steins, Ryan Cohen, and Michael Long for attackmen. Midfielders, Max Krevsky, Ben Johnston, and Johnny Hackett. Masato Rodriguez at Fogo, Kristen Mazur and Carter Rice at short stick, Pace Billings at long stick, Quinton Kilrain, John Schulter, and Billy Dwan on defense, and Cardin Stoller at goalie. In total, Notre Dame leads our list with 7 All-Americans, Virginia and Syracuse with 6 apiece, Army and Hopkins with 4, Duke, Princeton, and Yale with 3, Cornell, Penn, Maryland, Colgate, North Carolina, Georgetown, and Michigan with 2, and Penn State, Harvard, Denver, St. Joe's, and Utah with a representative each. So, gentlemen, discuss your thought process on the All-American selections.
And, shout out to James Ball. IL asked for 2 honorable mention Fogo, so he's over there a little over there on that column G. Jake, as we were talking about like transition and stuff like that, and then you just see Notre Dame and Syracuse and Virginia with what's that 19 total of the all of our selections. I mean, feels a little bit more balanced. Just having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams with at least 2, and then you got another 5 with at least 1. So it's good to see a lot of representation, more than our normal usual suspects up there. But kind of stands out for me, just like maybe CJ Kirst has it really been like as apparent, maybe by the end of the year it's not so, but like apparent like of kind of a consensus best player, at least on the offensive end. Like I know Kavanaugh's got the hardware, and they do great things at Notre Dame, and I got big expectation for Coulter. But yeah, it feels like CJ is kind of one of the first years where it was like kind of a clear-cut number 1. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but that's one thing that kind of stood out, at least with our first teams, But Hopkins, I think, happy with the defense, little concerned about the offense, shouldn't be surprised Matt Collison being in there for midfield was, really solid. But I think it's kind of be more of a defensive led year. And I think kind of matches what we've been, with our polls, with Cuse and Cuse and Notre Dame, kind of leading the way with Virginia tied at number 2 with All Americans. They're our top 2 teams. Cornell, top 5. Kind of a lot of that is a lot of faith in CJ Kirst. But it's I feel it's a little bit more of a balanced All-American pick, but maybe that's kind of goes more into what we've been saying, kind of a transition year, a lot of new faces, kind of try to see like new stars step up, but it's kind of felt, balanced, pretty happy with everything that we picked here. Didn't feel like anybody that, we left off that really should have been on there, but I mean, it's our polls or it's our picks, Jake. So I'm obviously going to be a little happy with it, but feel good with it and more than willing to stand by it.
Yeah, obviously, if we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So if you got any comments, feelings in the chat, anything you disagree with, feel free to share. Anything you agree with, also like to hear that. I love being told that we're right and correct. But any points of disagreement that you have, feel free to share out. Any players you think oftentimes look. Yeah, I do think it. The Crosse kind of contingent on Twitter watches a lot of games and is aware often of players that sometimes the media sometimes isn't. So, if there are players you guys think are in line for a good year, feel free to shout them out. I think we kind of struck a good balance here of players that have had good years in the past, last year or in general with their careers, and also ones that we believe could be in lines for a strong leap in 2025. Because we discuss this sometimes with the media poll. It's not last year's the 2024 All-American team or the final 2024 poll. It's 2025. So I think you see this in some cases with, I'll give some examples. If I was just doing maybe a 2020 a career sort of retrospective, or going off guys' career achievements, maybe a Sam English would be on here as a first team. I mean, he's a second team. So, and he's a very good player. And maybe Jordan Faison would be second, third team, like that. Jordan Faison had a really good year as a freshman. Now, Ryan's kind of pointed this out. Obviously, he's on the Notre Dame football team. What kind of adjustment will he have for that, to lacrosse over the course of the year? Who could say? But considering how good he was as a freshman, the talent he has, I think that he's going to be, by the end of his career, one of the best midfielders. Not even one of. I believe he'll be, in terms of at least in terms of offense, the best offensive midfielder in the country, probably by the end of his career. So that's why you can put him first team. That third first team spot was one that was sort of up for contention discussion. Weishar and Plunkett were easy picks. Evan Plunkett was phenomenal for Army. He was their best player on the offside. And Mikey Weishar is so good for Towson. Really, in terms of getting them back to the NCAA tournament. Safe, you touched on this. Attack, I thought, was kind of easier than I anticipated, considering the talent that was in last year, losing those 3 big guys from the ACC, Schellenberger, O'Neal, and Pat Cavanaugh. Kirst was an obvious pick. Chris Cavanaugh was an easy pick as well, I felt. He was so good for Notre Dame in the NCAA tournament. And in some ways, I think you could argue, I don't want to say he was better than Pat Cavanaugh by the end of the NCAA tournament run, but you could say he was right there. It was, it really was, to both guys. They were in synergy with one another by the end of that tournament run. He wasn't just playing he wasn't just Pat's younger brother, the way maybe he was at the start of his career. The last one is arguably the one you could maybe quibble with. Coulter McAsee's been phenomenal for Princeton throughout his career. Second team and the third team, you can order these guys a lot of different ways. Spallina has super strong production. The argument against it is that production drops off against better teams in ACC play. It's fair. I think Owen Duffy, the ceiling for Owen Duffy as first-team All-American is not even really up for debate. The injury is fair. What he was coming off of last year, who knows how he comes back off of that. Sam King for Harvard was tremendous last year. Third team, if Chris Lyons is healthy, I do think he goes a little underrated. I think he gets a little underlooked. That guy is a hell of a lacrosse player because he scores. The goal numbers he puts up and the role he sort of plays in that offense, he played in 2023, was one of, in that sort of Mac O'Keefe kind of, or, Jake Taylor sort of Cormier kind of fashion. And he scored 62 goals, I think, for Yale in 2023. I'm not saying he's O'Keefe. I mean, O'Keefe is one of the best shooters of all time. But if you look at how many goals he scored, you look at that role in the offense, the amount of touches he has and the amount of times he has the ball compared to guys who usually play that role in the offense is far greater for Yale. Most guys who play that role, like the ball is in their stick for 2 seconds and that's it. It's done. It's very simple role. He has the ball for much longer. He was Yale's third leading, I think he was third on Yale in assists behind Brandow and Johnson in 2023. His capability as total, as lacrosse player is, I think his ceiling is super, super high. What I think that he could do. And I think we could see more of it with Brandow graduating now alongside Johnson. I think that dude is something. I think he's a hell of a player. So there's a lot of great players on this list. The defense, quietly, I think there's a lot of hell of players on this list. That first team defense, Scott Smith, Brendan Lavelle. Lavelle is a tremendous player. Sean Light is a sophomore. That's scary. Levi Virch, Ty Banks, a sophomore pilot. Obviously for Army, Richard Checo, some of his cost turnover numbers. There's a lot of great players. You got Schroeder, young guy for Virginia, Kilrain for Hopkins, Billy DeWan for Syracuse. So there's a lot of really good players on this list. I think it's one where you could kind of pick you can kind of make your kind of argument. If you want to, you could say, I think the guy in honorable mention could be second team, and someone would be like, yeah, fair. It's not as clear. The first team, great players, but not necessarily the home run hitter obvious than maybe in past years. Past years you have fifth-year seniors who have been first-team All-Americans like 3 times. So it's a little different, but I still think we got some great players here. It'll be interesting to see maybe how much it changes in comparison to mid-season and then the end of the year. The past couple of years, it felt pretty set in stone. that what you had preseason was what it was going to be by the end of the year as well. Maybe this year it'll be a little different. But yeah, if you guys have any different thoughts you want to share, any players you gonna have your eye on, want to shout out, obviously feel free. We'll be here.
It's a good list. Good list.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And I think, as you guys said, because of the glut of fifth-year seniors now kind of cycling out, I think it's going to be interesting seeing all the different fresh faces start to make their way onto these lists too. I think, because of all the oxygen that was taken up by some of these super teams the past couple of years and these super players on these super teams, now this is a really good time for, players to really step up and make a name for themselves now that there's a little bit of I wouldn't say a star power void, because there's still plenty of star power across the college landscape. But now there's really an opportunity for guys to really make a name for themselves because of the opportunity that's presented with the fifth years all graduated and stuff or run out of eligibility.
That's a good point. I'm excited. I'm excited to see that. It's been 3-4 years now where you could set your watch to the beginning of the year, and I don't know how many times we've, or me specifically, maybe have complained about that. Here's the Toronto Contenders segment they do on ESPN at the beginning of the year, and it feels like they just recycle the same highlights over and over every year. That it basically doesn't. It feels like they just cut the they cut the highlight tape and they've run back that segment from 3 years ago, in part because you could do it for Connor Schellenberger from 3 years ago, and Brennan O'Neill the same, and
Kavanaugh the same, and
Pat
Dark Horse Gavin Adler the same.
And Pat Kavanaugh was a contender for the tour. Pat Kavanaugh was a Touraton finalist 4 times. So what much was their incredible career? Amazing. It's Touraton finalist 4 times. Wasn't much left to say. It is wide open. Now, again, there's guys going into this season who CJ Kurse was in the national championship game 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. Chris Kavanaugh, the last 2 years, national champion. After that, it really is wide open. Who?
Yeah, it's a case that does Spallina continue to grow proportionately as he has the first 2 years? Does he continue to find that new level year after year? Because if so, that'll jump him into the conversation. Again, you said with Duffy, if he could stay healthy, some of these young guns, some of these we could have some super softs.
There was a tweet that talked about Ben Ware. And I said, for a defender to really get that sort of push. Now, it was interesting last year because Zappatello won the USILA Player of the Year. And I do think that I think Maryland's end of the season kind of cost him because Maryland sort of fell apart at the end of the regular season. And I think had Maryland stayed strong throughout the course of the season, I think he could have been in line for it potentially. Now, I still think part of it is the Touraton is just kind of like the NFL MVP. They've just kind of boxed themselves into this position as an offensive award, which is unfortunate. It didn't used to be this way. Defenders used to get nominated for that thing. Goalies used to get nominated for that thing. Entenmann did, and Patton, Adler. Did Adler get nominated 2 years ago even? I kind of wonder if he even got nominated.
I thought he did, didn't he? The ultimate weapon, weren't they calling him?
I hope he did. But Ajax did win the outstanding player, and I just wonder if not for Maryland kind of a bit towards the end of that regular season. It was not, but a defender needs to have a sustained. It needs to be what. Okay, Mark just put in the chat that
Gav was definitely at 2023 with CJ.
That's good.
Right.
So
that's just watch list.
It needs to be like a sustained thing from the beginning of the year, and maybe again, like we're talking about, an open sort of, it's an open field, can kind of create for that. That's what I think. I don't know if Joel White was nominated for this award, but that's what Joel White had at Cuse. Matt Landis had that in Notre Dame back in the day. There's a lot of conversation for a topic that's just very, old. But in general, it's just, these new kind of players. Ben Ware is a phenomenal player for Virginia. And as Safe said it, Ben Ware will probably be very crucial for Virginia's offense this season.
Transition?
Yes.
Maybe I could see, potentially 10 goals out of him,
Did he have 10 goals last year?
10 goals, double-digit assists. Yeah, definitely, he's going to be, I don't like Ben. In the most complimentary way. He's a phenomenal player, and I expect him to have a really big year. And that openness, maybe, and that need, as Ryan said, not a void, but definitely maybe some pieces you're expecting not there, and you're just going to need people to step up. And Ben kind of showed that he's able to do that on big stages.
Yeah, I think yeah, and as I was saying with super softs, Kabiri, he had a massive freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
If he puts up those same numbers as a soft and grows upon them, he's going to launch himself into the Tuaraton combo as well.
There we go. Yeah, Mark Adler wasn't a finalist. It was O'Neal, Kavanaugh, Schellenberger, Kirsten, Dordevic.
That was a 2023 year?
Yeah. That's my point. It wasn't even a finalist because it wasn't. He didn't get that push. Now he should have got that push because 2022 Cornell was in the national championship game, and they literally, their strategy down 6 goals to Maryland was just whoever is hot on Maryland, just put Gavin Adler on him. That was their entire defense.
It really worked.
It did. Wisnauskas is scoring goals. Go put Adler on him. Cal Long is scoring goals. Go put Adler on him. He's the fire extinguisher. Just But Ben Ware stats last year: 7 goals, 6 assists for 13 points, 97 ground balls, and 26 caused turnovers. Just obscene, but it needs to be something from the beginning of the year. Ware has some of that, I think. And however, for Adler, there was never enough oxygen in the ecosystem when you have the names Mark just mentioned. All those names took up all of the
O'Neal, Kavanaugh, and Shelley and Kurst have been for the past 3 years. Kurst is the only leftover really left.
And Dordevic was a big name. He was the biggest transfer, and Adler was a better player than Dordevic. It's not even a question. It's not just different. Tucker's a great player. Don't get me wrong. Georgetown getting him was a big deal. It helped them a lot. Had they had them the year before, they probably would have made the Final Four. they had them in the wrong season, but it's still different. But be that as it may.
All right. Shall we break down our top 20 then?
Absolutely.
All right. So our top 20 that we have revealed earlier in the week. It's unanimous. We had Notre Dame at number 1 as a start there, bid for a three-peat. Syracuse, we ranked 2nd. Cornell at 3rd. Princeton 4th. Maryland 5th. Virginia 6th. Again, the caveat that we did do this poll before any injury news broke out. Hopkins at 7, Duke 8, Denver 9, Yale 10, Georgetown 11, Penn State 12, Army 13, Penn 14, Towson 15, Michigan 16, North Carolina 17, Richmond 18, St. Joe's 19, and Ohio State at 20. Also receiving votes were Harvard, Lehigh, and Villanova. Shouts to Chris for putting Villanova in the Villanova spot. So our preseason poll, usually our poll has a lot of differing opinions, but this year we were kind of consistent on them. There wasn't really much too big of a range. Maybe on the back end of the top 10, like Penn was kind of a little bit over the place, like a high of 12, low of 16. But our top 10, no one really diverged more than like 2 spots from where they ended up in our poll. Usually we have a little bit more disagreement on things, but heading into this season, a little bit more consensus than we usually have heading into preseason polls.
I was surprised. Last year, I think we had some consensus going in, which didn't surprise me a lot because these last year or two, it's been pretty. You've had Notre Dame, you've had Virginia up there, you've had Duke. It hasn't been super. Having a consensus the last year or two hasn't been very surprising.
Yeah, top 3 ACC and Maryland, and they make up for your top 5.
You've had Hopkins in there, maybe a Penn State, Georgetown. So this year, with how wide open it's anticipated to be, I really expected to see things a lot different, more of a disagreement among us. I wonder if maybe how much we talked about it. This is part of this could be groupthink. Just we do talk about. Yeah, we talk about the poll a lot within our group chat ahead of time. With a couple weeks before it goes out, we obviously did a fall top 20. I know that Adam mentioned he his gut was kind of telling him Princeton a little lower, and then we have a lot of us having Princeton higher, and maybe that was a example of him sort of moving them up a little higher due to that. I think a good example of this could be when we did the fall show. I did not go into that thinking that I would have Cornell very high, and then the more we talked about it, just the more and more I talked myself into Cornell. Now I wouldn't go back and change that. The more I've thought about it, just the more I continue to think about, the higher I get on Cornell. But that's kind of a good example of how this process has played out. If you compare us to IL, we are like right there. Our top 6 is identical to IL. Our top 10 is.
When's the last time that's happened?
I have to go back.
I don't think we've ever had a matching top 6 with IL for a preseason poll.
Preseason, I don't know. We've been. Like Mark just said, no team is off more than 3 spots from IL poll. We've moved more closer to them. Again, we used to be. Harvard 21-18 is the biggest difference. We used to be more different from them prior to these past couple of years. When how much different was it really going to be when all these you had? And this year it felt like it was going to be. And perhaps we'll see when the season starts. That'll be fun to track how this is going to get. We got Hopkins 7. Isles got Duke 7, Hopkins 8. We have Yale 10, Denver 9. That's flipped. we have Penn State 12. They got Penn State 14. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. But you made a good point about Cornell, because I think I'm in the same boat that we kind of talked ourselves into like, wait a second, I think there's something there with the Big Red. Because we're thinking, okay, like, remember, we had that conversation first. Okay, we were thinking, okay, they're probably behind Princeton, probably behind Maryland. Let's talk starting with Virginia. And then we said, okay, they're looking better than Virginia. Then we were thinking, wait a second, they're returning more than Maryland. And then wait a second, they're more experienced than Princeton. And then all of a sudden, we're talking ourselves up on Cornell. And it's like, hey, we could even argue that we could put them at a Cuse. It was a kind of interesting conversation we had about that, where we kind of talked ourselves into Cornell during the fall one we did.
100%. And then I tried to backtrack myself, because I remembered how bad their defense was. And it was awful. But then I did the thing of, well, it can't be any worse. And I remember Yale a couple years ago, and I told myself that. And then Yale's defense did wind up being worse. I truly though, Cornell's, I genuinely don't think it can be worse. I mean, they were awful. It was an abomination. It's just genuinely grotesque. I'm surprised. The one surprise for me is I thought we would be lower on Denver than IL was. I thought Denver would get more love from the media. I mean, Final 14 last year. Denver last year, this was the one we had to take the mea culpa on. The media had Denver pegged. And this is just one of those things where, look, there are some things I think that we have a advantage of being on the outside, sort of looking in on. We're not as plugged into practices, and we're not as plugged in. Listen, there's coaches we talk to, and it's not like, I'm not going to say like we never talk to coaches. We don't talk to coaches
the IL polls
nearly as much as they do, though.
Yeah, the IL pollsters are mainly media members who, this is their lifeblood. This is what they do on a daily basis. We got 2 teachers and a lawyer on this show that, keep in touch with coaches and those on the ground and everything. But, we don't want to diminish ourselves by any means, but we do understand that the pollsters that are voting on the media poll, they got the ins and outs of everything.
They go to practices. Like, they watch like, that's my cats, by the way, if you hear that. They watch like fall ball, and they see this stuff. And so like that, I think, is Mark's asked, that's what I'm trying to pull up, if we find where we had Denver preseason
up right now.
Because I remember seeing the Denver being pegged as preseason favorite in the Big East in 2024 and being like, what?
Last year we had Denver at 13.
Yeah. We whiffed.
We were high on the Georgetown supply.
100%. Listen, Georgetown. They had
also had Denver at 13th, though. Mark said.
Oh, okay, this is fair. So this is interesting. There was USA Laxman, I know, had that one piece where they talked Georgetown up high, and I remember Quint in the Denver Johns Hopkins game. He was like, Denver is the NCAA tournament team this year, and I was like, really? Just the matter of factness with which he said it. Just usually something just very authoritative, just to the point. Denver hasn't made the tournament 2 years. It's just there was a confidence the way Denver was kind of spoken about last year. Not everyone said Final Four. That's a different thing. But we pushed back. We kind of went out there. Like, I don't know. I do think there was. I think people saw Denver probably in the fall, or maybe in their practices, and they probably got word maybe from Denver's coaches. Denver coach probably saw their team and were like, we think we got a team this year. And they were right. They did. And look, the media poll it's a wide block. There's media poll members who are us, safe votes in the media poll. And then there's, Chris votes in the media poll, and Chris talks to more people than we do. And then there's the media poll members who are, Terry Foy and so on McInerney and so on and so forth, who really go to the practices and are super plugged in. So it's a more there's a wide variety. So that I thought that we would be a little lower on Denver than I thought. Maybe I thought Denver would be ranked higher than Johns Hopkins. That's one I thought. I thought Denver would be ranked higher than Hopkins in the media poll. For example, they got further in the tournament. Obviously, they beat them last year. Now, granted, I'm not saying that it's something you should necessarily use to rank a team higher. A new coach, Matt Brown, gets a little further than Milliman in his first year. These were all kind of things I thought maybe that could have contributed to Denver being ranked higher in that. That was just something I sort of kind of thought I would have seen coming. Denver being ranked behind Yale even is a little. That was one I sort of struggled with. I didn't quite really know how to go. Once we got to this whole section, Denver, Duke, Yale, I kind of had to throw my hands up.
Yeah.
But that was the one. The one, if you asked me, was kind of surprising. I did think Denver would be ranked higher.
Yeah, I did have Denver ranked 7th in my poll, but looked like the consensus was, kind of all in the same ballpark, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, 11. There's a couple that had 11. But yeah, I guess that's kind of like our widest range out of the top 10 was Denver. High is 7, low of 11.
You got,
and then I guess
Yale's a bit of a swing. Yale's got 8 for a couple guys. I'm 13th, but it's just a bit of a gap there.
Yeah, again, that same category, and I think the 11th through 15th is always a difficult spot. I think, Georgetown and Penn State, are they going to keep the momentum going with a different group? Army, how are they going to respond to the collapse last year? Things like that.
I've seen Army as high as 6. Pretty high. But, it's not. I have a question. USA Lacrosse Magazine has Towson at 11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mark has a question.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else got questions? Throw them at us. Or if you guys have, I know there was one, I saw one comment on Twitter that they were kind of quibbling about Richmond and St. Joe's. They kind of mentioned that was a disagreement. They didn't think those two teams, considering what they lost in St. Joe's, lose their top 3 scorers and accolade banner type guys, could be ranked in the top 20 again. Richmond loses 2 of their top 3. Didn't think they'd be ranked. I
think with Richmond and St. Joe's, part of that is they've shown that they've had the ability to reload in the past 5-6 years.
Program strength.
So I think that's why we've kept them in the back end of the top 20 is I think, at least that's how I justify it, is that both programs have shown that even when they lose guys, they're able to restock and get themselves back in the top 20 mix pretty quickly. We're talking, first month of the season or so. So I'm banking on them kind of continuing that program-wide trajectory.
Yeah, St. Joe's is one I did struggle a little bit with. Richmond, the counterpoint I made was Richmond does lose 2 of their Richmond does not lose their top 3. They lose 2 of their top 3, and they return their number 2 scorer. This did happen after the 2022 season, where they lost 2 of their top 3 scorers. They returned their number 2 leading scorer. And what happened after that season was Richmond made the NCAA tournament in 2023. And so this is something they've proven themselves able to do. Now, you could say, was Richmond a top 20 team in 2023? You make the NCAA tournament, I think you're probably somewhere around the top 20 team. They made it in the A10. It's a pretty good league. So I think they'll both be thereabouts. I could see St. Joe's having to fall off. To answer, but that defense, they got Verts there. I think they'll be pretty good on that end. And Ray knows how to coach up that defense. That's Mark's question. Who is the lowest team that has realistic Final Four hopes in terms of preseason expectations?
I could see a Towson Cinderella run.
Ooh, I like that.
If it clicks for Carolina, it's Carolina.
That's what I was gonna say. They're gonna bring
Like-
a lot. Maybe.
You can talk yourself into. I don't think Richmond and St. Joe's are there yet. I mean, if a program hasn't won an NCAA tournament game, it's hard for me to say you can make a Final Four yet. That's kind of my dividing line, I want to say. That's a good question. Has a program when I'm trying to think of these sort of Cinderella Final Four runs that we've had, has anyone just done the whole thing and made the Final Four off the bat without ever prior having won an NCAA tournament game? That's a good kind of question.
Like you mean like the prior season making it?
No, so like, has anyone ever made a Final Four without having ever won an NCAA tournament game?
At all. Oh.
At least in the, let's say, 16-team tournament era.
I guess Rutgers was kind of close, right?
No, Albany.
Rutgers-
That lead 8, and then they lost to Carolina. And then
Mark says he's reached on quarterback. Ryan, you can maybe look it up. Like, who's the Cinderella teams that have done it? Towson had done won plenty. UMass had won plenty. Delaware, Delaware got to the Final Four in 07, right? Was that Delaware?
Yeah, they made it in 07.
Delaware had won an NCAA tournament game before, correct? I believe they had.
Let's see. Well, 16-team era is 2002 onward, right?
Yes. So I don't know if Delaware had done it then. That could be like it might be far enough back where you could.
Yeah. So Delaware did not make it because remember Hofstra dominated the.
They made a
CAA
quarterfinal in
before that.
'99 and '84.
But the 99 quarterfinal might be 99 quarterfinal might be an auto bid.
Let me see where they were ranked. 99.
Because 99 is John Grant Jr.
No, at 99 they won a first round game. They beat UMBC in overtime.
Honestly, I'm kind of calling 99 a you've won an NCAA tournament game. That's yeah. So who else are we?
Rutgers, I think, had that one year in the 2000s.
Rutgers had also beaten. Rutgers is a Big Ten team. Like, that's.
They wanted Rutgers men's lacrosse. I know they're a Big Ten team. They did make a quarterfinal in the year before in 2021.
This is everyone. I'm not missing any other crazy runs.
90
recently.
There's UMass.
UMass had won plenty. UMass beat Syracuse in 05.
In 05, yeah.
UMass have won plenty of NCAA tournament games.
That's the only one I was thinking of, like in terms of Cinderella Final Fours.
So to go to the Richmond St. Joe's, I'm not. To me, it feels very hard to win 2 NCAA tournament games without having done it prior. Maybe it could happen. I'm not going to rule it out. I just think I'm looking at Army and Towson as 2 distinctly different in a different ballpark to Richmond and St. Joe's. Army was right there with Penn State from taking that game to overtime 2 years ago. Army was in a quarterfinal. Ways back against who was I forget who was it Cornell they played in 2010.
I do have one for you.
Okay.
Big caveat because it's tyranny. Denver.
Ooh, okay, that's Bill Tierney. that's a good shout. That is a good shout. Wow, yeah. Wow, how about that? Bill Tierney, man. Damn, he's the GOAT. He's the man. Safe remembers that game.
The Hopkins band member breaking his drum set in disgust.
Oh, man. Wow, that's great. Yeah, it's wild. Wow, how about that? Can't believe we forgot that one. All right, that's a caveat because that's Bill Tierney. There you go. So,
And then if you want to say if you count it, Brown in 16, their last quarterfinal was 95.
Brown made a Final Four in like 94, though.
Uh-huh.
Brown made Final Four. Brown's different, yeah. So, and Albany had made, cool rounds. So, like, I just think, to me, I don't really see Richmond and St. Joe's as
Penn State.
Yes, true. But again, Penn State, true.
But like, they kept making the tournament. But like,
wow, I can't believe we never got Penn State too. Yeah, we missed two obvious ones. Big time programs though, yeah. Like, Loyola probably did. Maybe Loyola might have done it too.
I think Loyola had some.
I'm saying Loyola jumped from like D2 to D1, so Loyola's first. Like Loyola might have done it off like a.
Right off the semifinal.
Yeah, they did it right off the bat. Well, yeah, 81 was in Division 2. 1990 they made the Final Four.
But that might have been like
no, they already made the quarterfinal in 88 and 90.
Okay. Anyhow, we're going way back. Anyhow, to answer the original question, I think I could see could Army make a Final Four? Sure. Could Towson? Yeah. Carolina is, and then Ohio State at 20. They've done it with this head coach. I don't foresee it this year, but is it realistic? I don't know if I call it realistic, but it's not outside the bounds of. If it all goes right for them, the ceiling on their season is probably top 8 seed. I would say. Look, Safe says he thinks the ceiling for them is that they're a top 2 or 3 team in the Big Ten. If you're a top 2 or 3 team in the Big Ten, you're going to be in the conversation for a top 8 seed. In which case, if you're a top 8 seed, you can make the Final Four. That's what I'll say. So, I think you go down to 17. And then maybe Ohio State. Richmond and St. Joe's the two that I don't really see it happening. Towson is another where I call it really unlikely, but this is a program that's done it. They've made quarterfinals as well. So, Army has made a quarterfinal. Army, they got to make the tournament, though. Like, forget anything past that. Army got to make the tournament. Michigan is another one where there is a definite. Michigan has another leap to make as a program, I think, before we can start talking Final Four. They've taken a leap 100% as a program the last 2 years. You made a quarterfinal. You backed it up with another trip to the tournament. That's a big step. The only quarterfinal they made, Duke whooped them. There's still a gap there. We haven't seen Michigan be competitive in a quarterfinal yet. For that matter, you could argue I think Georgetown was competitive in the Virginia one 2 years ago. They were in that game.
Well, no, Yale was first round, right?
Yes, they beat Yale.
They gave a bit of a scare to Notre Dame. It was 5 goals in the fourth quarter, but I wish that started a little bit earlier. But
no, yeah, I mean, they played with Notre Dame to the extent anyone could play with Notre Dame.
They may have given them the best game in the tournament. Yeah,
they played with them. They need to win one of them. I do think they've shown as a program they've put that 2021 game to bed enough that it's not really a factor anymore. But
you say it'll never be forgotten, but it's not the first thing that people talk about now. Like,
it's not one of those. where anytime you play in that quarterfinal, people are going to bring that.
You remember when the Hoyas got murdered? Yeah.
I mean, that Virginia, the Virginia game in 23, that was like the only thing we talked about.
Yeah.
James Riley just the first play of the game, he goes for a ground ball and can barely get up.
With the ball before game, I was like, this is bad vibes. I just don't like it.
Not good.
Real quick, let me just run through.
You know a game is gonna go bad when you start the game man up and it comes and you come away like and everything goes wrong. Yeah. Georgetown started with like a 2-minute man up and the possession ends like, man, that just was went horribly wrong. You lose your face off. You lose your face off man off it, and their only shot literally goes into a Virginia player's stick.
No. It's kind of like when we were talking about that Towson Cuse game from 2017, where like Cuse was coming, for an actual lacrosse game, and Towson was like, "No, we're here for a fight.
No, we're doing it." Yeah, and then it's 3-0 Towson after 5 minutes, and
just jumped him. Yeah, just absolutely just jumped him, and
Virginia was like, "How many goals do you want to score here? You can score everybody you want, but this is like a bit." Name your score.
Yeah, we'll give you a hockey score. You're going to score 3.
That's all you're getting.
That might make a Frozen 4, but it's not going to make a Final 4.
Virginia was like, you want 3 goals in the first 3 minutes? Cool. That's all you're getting the game.
Let me see if they had the box score on Wikipedia. Yes. Georgetown won the first quarter 3-2.
No, they didn't. In that
Virginia?
Yeah, I don't know. The Wikipedia box score is all screwed up. It has 3-1.
In the 23, in the 22 game, they might have. The 21 game.
The box score on Wikipedia is wrong.
Yeah, bro. I'm like the 22 game was a friggin'.
It was an execution.
It was a crime scene. That game was.
It was like a war crime video snuck out into Ukraine or something.
They were cleaning them up
just before Ukraine started.
They were cleaning Georgetown up with a mop.
He's like Serbia or something like that.
They were cleaning Georgetown up with a mop. So after that game, it was just heinous, just absolute heinous.
Here, let me just run through Adam's comments real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start from 20, where he has Lehigh.
Yeah, he puts way more effort into his poll than us. So,
well, I mean, also he's not on here, so he doesn't have.
Yeah, exactly. He can't answer for himself. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, Adam. Will Scudder surprised in his first year as head coach. They're probably the second best team in the Patriot League, which should give them an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament again. Good face-off play. Checo's a menace. Richmond, number 19. They lose a lot with no obvious replacements, but Chamati gets it done every year. Mitch Dunham's a very interesting transfer defensively. Canadian who wrecks havoc. The Ohio State University at number 18. They played some really tough, close games against quality opponents last year. Van Buren returns from injury, and some talented transfers arrive to help the offense. Myers needs to turn it around. Towson at 17. Will be tough to replace DeMayo and Bars, but they're massive favorites in the CAA and should be a threat to upset someone in the tourney. North Carolina at 16. 3 straight missed tournaments. This is a do-or-die year. A lot of young talent. Attack should be fine, but desperately need more from the midfield. Michigan, number 15. They lose a decent amount from last year, and I'm not convinced they did enough in the portal or through recruiting to hold serve. But they're getting to the point now as a program where they almost feel like this is their floor. Army, number 14. They have an all-American caliber players at every position. Got to change something up front to avoid the late season fizzle. No excuse not to win the Patriot League. Penn Quakers, 13. I'll probably be slightly higher than consensus here because they're the only team in the Ivy League that plays defense. But they got to find more goals this year. Loss of continuity on offense could help. Penn State, 12. There's a chance that TJ Malone's the single most impactful loss in the country, but they play great defense in front of Freyshawn, and they have enough talent in the other places to make a run. Denver, number 11. On paper, number 11 might seem high for the talent they have, but they're better than the sum of their parts. Tough to rank a Final Four team from last year any lower than this. The D will be solid. Face-offs? Question mark. Georgetown. The Hoyas at Georgetown 10. Georgetown. The Hoyas lose a ton and didn't have a huge portal year like they did prior to last season. And yet they just keep making quarterfinals. Underrate at your own peril. I agree. Yale, number 9. We know the offense is going to be electric. Can the defense make any stops? Who starts in goal? The offense is top 5, but the D has not earned the benefit of the doubt. Duke, number 8. No idea what the offense is going to look like. Vibes were weird last year. Reset could be just what they needed, or just what they need, or it could be signs of an era coming to an end. Big range of outcomes. The Johns Hopkins University, number 7. Back-to-back quarterfinalists. They lose a lot, but also bring back more than people think. Brooks English back from injury. Hackler and Stout, impactful transfers. Virginia, number 6. People close to the program are lowering expectations a bit. No replacing Shelley or Cormier, but they still have talent all over the field, and they're always in the mix. Princeton, number 5. Madeline keeps stockpiling talent. They didn't lose quite as much as the portal as they have in previous years. Attack is deadly. Face-off issues are largely solved. Big question is goal. Maryland, 4. Weirman and Zapatello are huge losses, but they've got some really intriguing transfers, and they make the Final Four every year.
True.
No lie detected. Syracuse, number 3. Only real questions are in goal and the rope unit. Losing do-it-all midi Jake Stevens hurts, but anything less than a Final Four appearance is a disappointment. Cornell, number 2. So many weapons on offense. Defense was banged up last year. They get top face-off guy back. Feels like the pieces are aligned. And back-to-back defending champion Notre Dame at number 1. I'm not someone who believes in defending champs should be automatically be preseason number 1, but Notre Dame still has the best roster in the country. And that, friends, is Adam Epstein's top 20.
Great job. Yeah, it is interesting. The whispers around Maryland and Virginia are, Ryan's gone.
Maybe internet thing.
The whispers around Maryland and Virginia are a bit work in progress ish. Kind of like, it may take some time. Definitely, we'll be better later on. That's interesting. Intentional, maybe. True, also maybe. I think there's a lot of how much is gamesmanship here? How much is with some of these reports out of scrimmages? How much is fact? Scrimmages are always fascinating. Sometimes there's been times I can tell you there's been years you hear results from scrimmages and it's like that turned out to be nail on the head. There's been years you've heard results from scrimmages and it turned out to be wrong with both teams. A team won a scrimmage big and they had a bad year. A team lost a scrimmage big and they also had a bad year, but or they lost a scrimmage big and had a good year. So you never really know. But it is interesting, Maryland, Virginia. There does seem to be. Didn't Notre Dame get boat raced in a scrimmage last year?
Yeah, Corrigan said that. I remember at the press conference.
Well, I mean, did they? Or he said it.
I think the score indicated it too. I forget who they played, but yeah, it was like, yeah.
They could have. Do they start late? Do they start later because of the? I mean, because I know they start their season usually a little later than everybody else.
They usually start a little later, like a week later.
Duke for years never played in the fall, and that always.
Yeah, Syracuse always just had an alumni game then fall ball. They didn't even bother having another team come over for the longest time.
Duke would almost always for years never play in the fall. Now they do. So how does with Duke's some of their results now they play in the fall is a little different. I think Notre Dame could be reflective of that. I know they start a little later. Notre Dame, I know there has been some. I think one of their young freshmen, Brady Bicorni, has been putting up some. At least the word seems to be he's been lighting it up in some of their freshman results. Get this: Notre Dame has young talent on their roster. Crazy. Wow, like they need any more.
Good for them. About time something swung their way. Yeah. I told you, like my boy Joe, his girlfriend is a huge Notre Dame fan, and like kind of a lacrosse fan. She used to play, but not a men's lacrosse fan. But they started dating, and then like kind of got her into lacrosse. And all they've done is won. The last 2 years, and it's like Joe with the Q's out with the Hopkins. They were like, this is so annoying. Like you just became a fan yesterday, and you're already back-to-back champs. But
they can tell you some things. They can tell you. It's always nice to have information. But it's tough.
Mark was saying the scrimmage last year was Princeton 20, Notre Dame 5.
Beast. That's sick. That's sick. They totally tanked that scrimmage. 100%. No,
totally tanked it.
They went like 15-1. They totally tanked.
Yeah, they tanked that.
100%.
Hey, it gave a good confidence boost to Princeton. It propelled them to an Ivy League title.
Princeton Princeton needed to win the Ivy League tournament to make the NCAAs. They 100% tanked that scrimmage.
Yes, and all because of the confidence they built by beating a team that they saw nearly run the table in the regular season.
No way they didn't tank that.
I'm kidding.
No way.
They were absolutely Corrigan was trying to send a message. It was like when Boeheim lost to Lemoyne, and then they ended up they would have made the Final Four if Inze Onuaku didn't get hurt in the Big East tournament. Corrigan was definitely proving a point somewhere. We need an oral history of that scrimmage.
Oh yeah, I need like who played. Pat Cavanaugh definitely didn't play that one because
what was it? The student managers getting a little run, have some fun, or
who played? How often? What was Entenmann's pregame? What was Entenmann doing the night before?
Did Entenmann do like Josh Allen in Week 18? He takes one shot, they run him off the field, get a little standing O from the sideline, then let's give our third and fourth stringers a little bit of a test run to see what's what.
20 to 5. Did they count Princeton goal doubles? Double?
They experimented with the pro 2-point line.
Yeah,
and
Corrigan,
Princeton's known for midfielders.
Princeton hits a goal. Corrigan turns to the scorekeeper. That's 2. That's 2.
Were
they playing sixes?
He's telling Money Mitch to run it up. He's like, keep going, keep the starters in.
Notre Dame, Jake Taylor scores a goal from like in tight. He's like, that one doesn't count.
Were they experimenting with sixes for the Olympics as a little test run or something?
It's like when they would do those
national team guys.
Like when teams do those in practice, like goals don't count unless there's 3 passes before it.
No, that's a fast break. No. We're not counting that.
He played with one less man on offense and defense, like in the Hoosiers. My team's on the field, ref.
Well,
Coach,
in lacrosse,
my team's on the field.
Notre Dame played with all their goals counted with like a 50-second shot clock. So they'd score with a 10 corners. Like, nope, doesn't count for us.
If you've ever played lacrosse, the Princeton drill. It's they call out a number. It's X amount of players on offense, -1 for defense. So maybe they're playing, 5-on-4, 3-on-2. It's a variation of the Oklahoma drill, but the Princeton drill. That brings back some high school lacrosse memories. I guess now it's time to do our things that will have egg on our face. Hopefully later than sooner.
Do you have any?
It's time to drop our 2025 predictions, boys.
Maybe any storylines or things we're excited about before? Speaking of excited, if you've been excited about this video, this live stream, if you've enjoyed watching it, you've had a fun time. Ryan, what can you do?
You can like and subscribe. Again, Cross Commission, this is going to be our hub for the season. YouTube, live streams all season long. So when Jake and Safe do their Tuesday night pods, streaming. Saturday night power hour, streaming. Maybe if we're at a game or something, want to do a little post-game chat, streaming.
Magic.
All right, yeah. So what are we excited for this season?
I mean, the three-peat has got to be number one. The storyline.
Yeah, that's the story.
You really can't. You can't. We're on the cusp of history. Remarkable run by this Notre Dame team. Just want to see how this story plays out. I mean, I know that's kind of a low-hanging fruit, but yeah, I think that three-peat's got to be like the story of the year going into the year. Just the way lacrosse is, I think the Belichick to North Carolina, even though it was obviously for a different sport, I think that did bring a little juice maybe to Carolina, just like, how lacrosse media is like. So, the first spotting of Belichick at like a North Carolina game, that's going to be storylines and stuff like that. So I think that then also maybe
viral moment you're talking about, Safe?
Carolina, a bit of a push, just some good news about the program and some excitement.
My dog, what?
Well, at least you didn't say Ryan Day showing up.
Is this what you're excited about? What are you excited about?
I think that was your question. I think you said,
Belichick showing up in a game. That's something to be excited about.
What are you
Think
excited
about all the social media posts on like
It's
ESPN will post
there's
it.
going to be a lot of
On
more.
3, we'll have a graphic that says at a lacrosse game with Belichick looking scally like this. Come on, think of the viral opportunities, Jake. It'll be huge for the sport.
Do
you
it
can
for the
see on a
content.
couple Instagram accounts.
Do it for the content, Bill.
Oh, man.
I mean, I think we hit the ACC storylines last week. That's the other thing, just the transition. But, in no way trying to jinx this, Ryan, because I do have Q's at number 2. I just would love to see if they could make that. I mean, Hopkins wasn't able to make that next step last year when I thought they were, going into season, even though they had a, tremendous game against UVA. But you'll love to, see if the Orange can capitalize on what they did last year. We said, the dome was rocking, goals were guys kind of an electric atmosphere, not back, but, you kind of have the hallmarks of being back, and maybe a Final Four run for the Orange. I think then they're kind of, be officially back.
I think that kind of goes in line with, are we turning the clock back to the 2000s this year? Think about the teams that are up on the top. Notre Dame was kind of in the hunt as a mid-major in the 2000s, but you look right behind them. Who's involved? Syracuse, Cornell, Princeton, Maryland, Hopkins, Duke. Is what's old new again? Because that's kind of the interesting thing, is it's a little bit of a return of the old guard. It's kind of has a feel of a 2000 season heading into this season, which is kind of interesting. And it's, the wide growth that the sport's had and everything, it's a bit, I know, yes, the same teams have kind of been in the mix, for the past 10 years or so, but now we're kind of taking it a step further. It's a lot of these teams that were in the conversation in the 2020s now all of a sudden are in the conversation in 2025. So that's going to be mighty interesting, I think. Virginia, too. I don't think I said Virginia, did I?
No, yeah, you didn't say Virginia.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, in our poll, there's Notre Dame, yes. But then Syracuse, Cornell, Princeton, Maryland, Virginia, Hopkins, Duke. That's a very...
blast from the past.
Yeah, like 2000s, we're heading to NFL stadiums, everybody, kind of vibe to it. It's going to be kind of interesting to see if that holds up, because if so, it's kind of going to have that feel of a throwback kind of season of, you know, the big names on top.
Yeah, I'm just interested and obviously any of you guys in here with us kind of throw out what you're interested in. Love to kind of hear from you guys. Throw it in the chat. What a lot of teams are in different places, and how they handle a safe pitch of the transition or the opportunity potentially is interesting to me. You know, Cuse is in a chance for a potential ascendancy, a leap, chance to get back to the Final Four. Princeton, with so much talent, young talent returning, there's a real chance for them to make a jump to another Final Four, maybe a national championship. Cornell, CJ Kurse senior year, Michael Long last year. Michael Long played with Jeff Teat. You know, it's the last go around for him. How do these programs, can it be a big year for the Ivy League? As a lot of people seem to think. I do think there's a chance that it can be a really successful year for the conference as things kind of return back to maybe a more normal footing. Some of these, Virginia, as we talked about, Schellenberger, Cormier, legends of the program exit out the door as they sort of approach where Maryland has been the last 2 years. How does Virginia manage that? How does Lars, traverse that kind of difficult position in relation to how Maryland did it? Can he kind of emerge on, a similar kind of footing, maybe even better? In terms of Maryland, they have brought in, kind of as Adam mentioned, some really intriguing transfers. It does seem like, there does maybe appear to be some potential expectation setting, but on the other hand, they brought in some transfers that would have you believe they thought they had a chance to win. It's on the one hand, work in progress, fair. On the other hand, hey, you had a chance to play a lot of young guys. You could have done that, and you chose to bring in transfers over them. That kind of leads you to believe that you thought you could have a chance to really attack this season and win. So, how does that sort of kind of dichotomy play out? Where does Hopkins go after a season that really felt like it was the potentially, the year to break back into the Final Four mix? They still have a lot of really key pieces on that team. Defensive end, Scott Smith, Quentin Kilrain, bring in Luke Stout in goal. Patrick Hackett, I'm talking offensive questions, but they could be a heck of a team on the defensive side of the ball. Not out of the question. They could make a Final Four, or it could go the other way. So teams like a Georgetown, where do the Hoyas go? This is the least talked about Georgetown's been heading into a season in a long, long time. Does that play into their advantage? Can they use that like Denver did a year ago, where they were not talked about and kind of finally break through that glass ceiling? Duke talked about the ultimate kind of wide range of outcomes. So a lot of Penn State, we've seen Penn State of the past as they've kind of TJ Malone, maybe the most impactful loss of one player in the country. The last time we spoke in that terms about Penn State, the hit to the program for a couple of years was pretty staggering. Can they avoid that this year? So it's there's just a lot of teams. A lot of these teams are in very different places in terms of what they've lost, where maybe what they're gaining, where the program is at relative to recent results, what they've achieved, where they're hoping to go. And yet, I think everyone kind of feels like, hey, if we can put some things together by the end of the year, I don't think anyone feels like they're out of it. Like we talked about last year, I think if you were a team ranked down at 17th at the start of the year, did you really think you could compete with Notre Dame? I don't think the answer was yes. The answer this year feels like yes, maybe you could. So that's what makes it very interesting. How do a lot of these different teams handle a lot of these transition moments this year? Every team is in transition to a degree. Some teams potentially are maybe transitioning to big runs at it. Some teams are maybe transitioning to trying to restock, for what's kind of been a cold winter, maybe for years ahead. But it's maybe not a bad year to do that. So that's kind of what interests me.
Mark, I am very concerned about the Hopkins defense. Just to answer your quick question before we go for it. We talked about that. About the offense. I've talked about that on the Big Ten pod with Jake. Just not that I think that it's going to be more abound or anything like that, but definitely I just want to see it, to see what it's like. That I'm really excited about. Maybe excited is not the right word, but very interested in that Denver game, just to see how they'll be able to react on the road, just to see that offense, see if Carlson can be a leader who's going to step up now that Angelos is gone. I mean, lost a lot of weapons last year, and so definitely tad concerned about the offense. But we kind of lamented that, so I don't want to bore the audience too much more about that. But just go to our predictions.
Honestly, I don't think the offense was good. I don't think the offense was good enough last year to be concerned.
Well, do you remember we were talking about I was lamenting not having an actual go-to hitter, and I was like, we got a lot of guys who can contribute, and you were like, well, that kind of concedes the point that you don't have a go-to hitter. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the laws.
I don't know. It
drove me crazy.
It feels like lament. It's what are we lamenting the loss of?
Jacob Angelos was good. I mean, he was a good distributor. I mean, that's my main thing. Really, I mean, there's not that much coming back. Officially,
That's true. Was there a lot there to begin with? I mean, there was a lot of. They're very good. Yes, Degnan was very good. Angelos is very good. I'm going to run down the goal totals in their last 6 games. 9, 11, 7, 7, 13, 10. And the offensive efficiencies, 29, 35, 24, 21, 40, 30.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels like when an NFL team loses the offensive, when the offensive, NFL team's offensive coordinator, it becomes the head coach. It's like, man, they got to replace the offensive coordinator. It's like, was the offense great?
It was great for periods of time, and then it would just be gone. And it was like,
it was great for it was great for periods of time. It was great it was very good in February. Their offensive efficiency was 34%. It was great for one period of time in March.
It was 40%. I mean, in March. Games, it was points where they were not lethal. That's what I said last year. I was like, that was my biggest thing. I was just like, I wasn't afraid of anybody. There wasn't a Connor. There wasn't a threat. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, there. Look, listen, man. Yeah. You didn't have Connor Schellenberger. I mean, that's. I would say if we did this pod for 3 years, I told you didn't have Connor Schellenberger. I mean.
They always say, Connor Schellenberg's not walking through that door safe.
Paul Rabel is not walking through that door.
Paul Harrison is not coming back to save you. I'll take Jake Byrne. Jake at this point. I'll take.
It's not.
See, this is where we needed Adam, where he can cheer you up and say that all these incoming guys are going to be really, 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 really good. And the rest of the Big Ten's due.
My point the point I'm trying to make, I think, is that I don't think that getting back to where Hopkins was offensively, I don't think is very hard. Their offense was by the end of the year, they were in April and May, they were basically at Maryland levels offensively the whole season. I mean, it was not very good by the end of the year. In the beginning of the year, they were very, very good. And in March, when they looked like the number 2 or 3 team in the country, it was excellent. For the whole year, they were in offensive efficiency 14th. I don't think Yale's defense can't get any worse. Yeah, it's just true. I don't think it will. I think they can get back to where they were offensively. I do believe with the pieces they have, Collison, Bauer, Melendez, Brooks English back, like Adam mentioned, Jimmy Ayers, young guy. I think they can do that. The question for me the concerning thing is not, can Hopkins offense be the 15th best offense in the country again? Can it be the 5th best offense in the country? Yeah. Can it be the 3rd, 4th best? Can it be an offense that is? That's the question worth asking. I don't know. Yes, San Joseph. I don't see a right now on this offense a first team All-American type player. And that doesn't mean there isn't a guy who could break out like that.
Well, I guess that's why I would say my concern. I'm so concerned. It's just like, because to your point, you're right. I mean, essentially, that's a top 25% offense, and when compared to the entire Division I. And if that's gone, like, do we have whatever it needs to replace just to meet that what we did last year?
And I don't think the offense was. I don't know if the pieces were being used particularly effectively by the end of the year either. The offense didn't, like in April, they didn't turn the ball over, and they also didn't score either. It was a lot of not much going on. I don't think with the talent they have, they can get there. You losing Degnan is a big loss. Can you get Chevette to where Degnan's at? You need to get that. That's the big. Or can you get like some of that, and can you get one more guy? That Angelus is. You need some. Angelus is a big piece as far as the assist share go. You need someone to pick up.
Distribute. Got it.
And that's going to be I think the offense is just going to look different. It's not going to be the same offense. 40%. Jacob Angelus having a 40% assist share in that. Jacob Angelus is a very good player. Jacob Angelus having that outsized role in an offense, for the offense being that, is not. It doesn't work. Is in my opinion, is how I would put it. In my view, he's a very good player. He touched the ball too much in that offense. The ball is in his stick too much. The ball should move. Jacob Angelus had a 10% higher share of Johns Hopkins assists than TJ Malone did in Penn State's offense. And TJ Malone was more pivotal to Penn State's offense than probably any other player was to any offense in the country. And Penn State's offense was better than Johns Hopkins' offense. And I would say if you're looking at Penn State's offense, Penn State's asking probably a lot of the same questions that Johns Hopkins is. How do we replace TJ Malone? How do we replace Jake Morin? How do we replace a lot of these guys? I think the offense replacing Jacob Angelus is a big loss. It is. I think Hopkins being as reliant as they were on Jacob Angelus was a flaw in the construction of the offense. You shouldn't have to rely on a guy. If you're relying on a guy that much to the extent Hopkins relied on Jacob Angelus, he should be as good as Connor Schellenberger. And that's not a knock on Jacob Angelus. But Jacob Angelus is a very, very good player. But Hopkins puts so much on his shoulders. And it's like, that's not his, like, that's just not his, he had moments where he played that well. He played very well in the Maryland game we went to. But the degree to which they put the offense on his is like, no. Like, he should not have been that level of, they were like, basically, the offense is built around you. If you're going to do that much, he's got to, he's not that level of player. The offense should move, considering the talent they had last year, the offense should have moved around more. Why do different guys not touch the ball more? Why does the offense not, that offense should have, different guys should have distributed more. And not just through dodging more. It just should have been a more fluid offense. By the end of the year, it felt like the offense just died in guys' sticks. And it was basically just Jake Angelus eventually became the guy who it just went to. And my opinion, I'm saying the sky's not falling. Again, if you told me the most likely outcome by the end of the year, I would say it's Hopkins' offense is probably where it was last year. I think it probably settles as being a 13th, 14th, 15th place offense, which honestly is mostly what happens when you have the talent level that they've had over the last couple of years, which is they have very, very, very good players, but they don't have a
killer.
They don't have that. They don't have that guy. That's probably where your offense is going to be when you don't have one of those guys. Now, if one of those guys comes out and pops out somewhere, then sure. I just don't see. I think Jake Angelus is really good. I think Degnan in particular was a hell of a shooter. I just think these are guys who I think the offense put such a reliance upon them that in some ways it made them. I'm not saying it made them look better than it did. I think it's making it feel like their loss is going to be greater than it will be. Is how I would phrase it. When is how I would put it. I think they became overly reliant on them for results that wouldn't match it. I think, if you had a top 5 offense and you lose those guys, yeah, I think you're right. Like a 13th place offense losing those guys, I don't know. That's how I would put it. If I'm going to, assuage the concerns. Maybe I'm wrong.
So it's now time to do our 2025 predictions. Ooh, baby. We'll do, so as usual, we have the same categories of national champ, Final Four teams, Tewaaraton winner, coach of the year, freshman of the year, and dark horse. So Adam put in, we'll just share his first. He has Notre Dame pulling off the three-peat. He's got Maryland, Hopkins, and Cornell as
the Final Four teams. You can share it on the screen.
Is that going to play spoiler for our stuff?
No, I mean, why not? I mean,
all right.
You can maybe.
It's the end of the show. Yeah, just show it to him.
Yeah, let's just do it.
All right, we'll give you what the people what they want. Holy God, oh my God, you guys! Wow, holy cow, you guys picked some wild ones. Wow, that's a big spoiler. No, he has Maryland, Hopkins, and Cornell in the Final Four because.
You also could scroll over if you want to.
Oh yeah, yes.
Look at that.
He's got Chris Kavanaugh as the Tewaaraton winner, Kevin Corrigan as Coach of the Year. He's under the train of thought of, and I am too, of Coach of the Year usually goes to the national champion coach. Unless it's Tillman, then they find someone else. He's got Brady Hawkerney of Notre Dame as his freshman year, and his dark horse is Penn. Now for ours. I think, if we're revealing it, I think the national champ is going to break a long, long drought. Okay? This is a team that has not won a national title in a long time. It's a starving fan base. Located in upstate New York. And in the Ivy League. That's right. I'm going with the Cornell Big Red to reverse the curse. I think we've talked ourselves into Cornell throughout the winter that I think... Look, now's as good a time as ever. They've got the best player in the nation in Kurst, who's my Tewaaraton winner. And they had the experience from the national title game a couple years ago. And I think they're going to thrive because I think the national media attention's on Syracuse and it's on Princeton. So what better way than Cornell to one-up both of their big rivals and finally win their first national title since the 70s? I mean, this is a program, their bread and butter is hockey and lacrosse at Cornell. Neither team has won a national title in over 40 years. They are starving for a champion. And I think this is the best time as ever for them. And I think that experience that they had with their seniors playing in that national title game against Maryland, an undefeated Maryland team, is going to give them some belief. I know the past 2 years they've just missed out on the tournament because of things going on in the Big East, things going on in the Big Ten, things going on in the other tournaments that shut them out. So they also got a fire within them that, hey, we're pissed off over missing the tournament the past 2 years, and we're going to take it out on everyone. So I think the Cornell Big Red win the national championship. I think this is the year they put it together. I think other Final Four teams, I just did it in ABC order. I think at this point after last year, never, ever, ever bet against Maryland or Virginia. I think at this point after what happened last year, you put them in as auto Final Four teams. And I think your other team is Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's still a very strong team. It's just that I think the mileage starts to show come May. As we've always discussed, it's very hard to three-peat. Nobody's three-peated since the 90s with Princeton. But I think they got the talent to get back to the Final Four, but I think against one of those other three teams is where the gas finally runs out, and they valiantly end the three-peat bid in the Final Four. You might be asking, where's Syracuse, Ryan? Well, look, if I've learned anything about the past 15 years of Syracuse lacrosse, they got to get over that quarterfinal hump. If they're playing against Maryland or Notre Dame or Cornell, three of my other teams in the Final Four, I can see them beating Virginia in the tournament. But Cornell, Maryland, and Notre Dame have been bugaboos for them in both the tournament and the regular season lately. If they land one of those three, I don't like their odds against it. You might be asking, where's Princeton? Well, I'm betting that Princeton in the quarterfinals, in the first two rounds, will have to play. Because I'm thinking Princeton, when all is said and done, remember I said that I think Cornell wins the Ivy League regular season title and Princeton wins the auto bid in the Ivy tournament. It's probably going to slot them in as a 6 or a 7 seed. Princeton won I cannot tell you the last time Princeton beat Maryland. It's got to be in the early 2000s at this point, right?
It might be 2004, I want to say, when the quarterfinal, when they
made the Final Four.
Yeah, that game Maryland had them up like 3 or 4 goals in like the last final quarter, and Princeton pulled off. This is back in the day when Princeton owned Maryland. For Maryland fans of a certain generation, not mine, the idea of Maryland owning Princeton is like just
okay. So that's one landmine for Princeton. The other one that I talk about all the time, they have beaten Syracuse twice since 2002. If their track record against Maryland and Syracuse is a major, major bugaboo. It's not quite Virginia versus Duke, but Princeton's track records against Maryland and Syracuse are major, major landmines, and I have a feeling they're going to have to face one of them before getting to the Final Four. Mark says Princeton's website says Princeton has only won one game against Maryland in 2000. I don't think they've had to beat them a couple times in the tournament before that in the 90s.
In the regular season, maybe. They've beaten Maryland in like 2 or 3 different national championship games.
Yeah. But my point is, though,
they
that
beat them in 96. They beat them in 90. They beat 04 in the tournament. They beat them in 96, 98 in the championship game. So, yeah, they beat them in multiple.
Yeah, it's got to be regular season only. So, I think I don't have Princeton in the Final Four again because of it's kind of like the Bills going against the Chiefs this weekend. They got to finally beat Maryland or Syracuse. And if they draw one of them, it's going to probably be in the first 2 rounds. And especially if it's a 3-6 or a 4-5 matchup. And we'll see when they play each other next month, but until Princeton shows that they could actually be in a game against Maryland or finally beat Syracuse, I'm not putting them in the Final Four yet. As I said, CJ cursed it as the Tewaaraton winner. I'm like Adam. I link the Coach of the Year. Everyone gets lazy and just gives it to the national title coach. But I think Connor Buszczak, if Cornell wins their first title in over 40 years, I think he's deserving of that and, getting that crew to finally get over the hump. Freshman of the Year is the interesting one. I think we were kind of like, I'm going kind of in the conservative route and saying Ben McCarthy because, hey, you got a guy who's going to likely be a starting Fogo, and that could play a big impact. And this year, where it's not really going to be looking like a year where freshmen are going to be leaping right into huge roles like we've seen the past couple of years. A lot of them are going to be taking red shirts. A lot of them are going to be lower in the depth chart, gaining experience. But McCarthy's going to be in a position where he's likely going to be going right from the word go. So I think we'll go with him as freshman of the year. Then my dark horse, kind of like Adam, sticking in the Ivy League, I think Harvard. I know I picked them as the dark horse like last year and the year before probably too. But I think Jerry Burns is building something special with this Crimson team, and I think you discount them at your own peril. I don't know if they're going to be at Cornell and Princeton's level, but like they could sneak in over Penn or Yale if things go all right. So I think Harvard will be my dark horse.
So I am on the same kind of wavelength as Ryan. By the way, for any of you guys, if you want to share your predictions with us, feel free. National champion, Final Four, Tewaaraton winner.
Yeah, if you tweet us or leave a comment too, we'll make note in our next episode. We'll shout you out and discuss too.
Absolutely, yeah. You want to tweet at us? We'll retweet it, put in the comments if you'd like. What we'd like to do. I've just talked myself into Cornell, and I've talked myself into Cornell, and I've talked myself into Cornell. And Additionally, I've also done a thing over the past 3 years where I keep picking against Cornell. And I'm going to not do that this year. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to try picking Cornell. See if it might work out for me. But no, the offense is last year was as good as anybody in the country. You saw that in the Notre Dame game. They played up on Long Island. They could score with the best of them. They were third in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency. They bring back basically everybody on that offense. Kirst, Long, Firth, Keller. I mean, they have a glut of offensive talent. I love the way they play on offense. It's a joy to watch. We talked about it last week on the show. They're going to threaten you in a multitude of ways. With Kirst, obviously, he's the best dodger in the country. But then everyone from there is such a multifaceted threat in how they can carry the ball and how they can pass. They play with a great degree of confidence. It's a joy to watch. They're going to score goals. The question that you have here is obviously the defense. And there's no question about it. That defense was horrific. They were 48th a year ago. The only defenses in one of the big three leagues that were worse was Yale. Tells you all you need to know. Also, was that actually? Yeah, that was it. Dartmouth was exactly the same, 30.9%. So it's got to be better. The talent is there though on that team. They have talented players on that defense. I do not think it is a talent issue. And Jordan Stevens has had good defenses at Cornell before. Granted, some of you point out a lot of it's Gavin Adler. I think I like Widenuss in goal. I've seen good things from him. Jack Haskins should be back at faceoff. I think that'll give them a lift. Which will leave some of the load on that defense, less possessions. They have the experience that Princeton lacks, which is very important. I think you could argue maybe the experience that Syracuse lacks in terms of the NCAA tournament, getting into a Final Four before. I think it lines up for them this season. So I'm going to take Cornell. My other Final Four teams, Maryland, it's a bit of a kind of reputation pick with what they've been able to pull off. Last year, going into the tournament, you were ready to kind of finally bail and just cut bait and say this not going to happen. Tillman's magic maybe is finally worn off, and then he did it. And overall, I think that they have pieces ready to pick up the slack where need be. Logan McNaney is still there in goal, and he has all sorts of experience. Logan McNaney's NCAA tournament record is what? He's lost 2 games. He's only lost 2 games, both in the championship.
Yeah.
So and look, he certainly had his ups and downs last year. But I do think a lot of it was, to me, confidence. You look at it, a lot of troubles on the clear. By the time he got back to the NCAA tournament, he had settled things down. He played strong. I think he's going to have a really strong final season. That's one thing you always want to have a strong goalie back there. I think they'll be able to ride multiple face-off guys. Shea Keithler, Sean Krieger, both guys who were well-regarded coming to high school. Keithler's played some in the past. They're really high on him within the program. So I think that they'll be able to weather the storm with Grimmer. I like what they've done at the rope unit. It's somewhere that has kind of fallen off compared to what it was in 2022 when it was such a strength for them. They brought in Zach Gourno, who was the short stick D-Midi of the year at the D3 level the last couple years. He's a guy who made our third-team All-American team. I think their short stick D-Midis will be the best they've been since 2022. I like their long stick minis. AJ Larkin was a guy who came out strong at the end of the year. I think they'll be able to push some transition more and be able to create some offense in more ways this year that they haven't in the past couple of years. Their defense should still be strong. Losing Ajax is tough, but they've still got Colin Burlace there, who was their number 2 defenseman a year ago. They've still got Will Schaller, who's a guy who stepped in for Ajax in the past when he's been injured and who was, kind of their number 3 defenseman at different points. Number 3 or 4 defenseman guys. Jackson Canfield, who was their number 3 defenseman, was a real rock coming in from Vermont last year as a transfer. He's back. So they return really. They'll have 3 defenders this year who all have starting experience. They'll be really strong defensively, I think, in front of McNaney. So I really like where they'll be on the defensive end, the rope unit. Offensively, it is a question kind of how they'll put these pieces together. But I still think they kind of found some things towards the end of that year with Spanos attack, moving Eriksen back towards midfield. I do have some questions. There are things I want to see. We're talking about the group chat. You can't run the Wisnauskas offense with guys that aren't Wisnauskas and not in Donville and those guys. That's an offense for dudes who are incredibly smart, who are 23 years old, and, who know how to play without the ball and who know how to go to spaces and be there before the ball is there. Certain guys can't play that offense. And when you don't have guys who can play that offense, the response can't be, let's just sit on the ball. The response needs to be, let's find a way to create offense elsewhere. Let's find a way to maybe push and transition. The response last year seemed to be, all right, let's just sit. And so I hope that there's solutions within it. It got frustrating. I felt like they just kind of turtled a little bit, and not in a good way, pun not intended. But I think there's still a foundation, of a good, really strong team. And when there's a foundation of a good Tillman team, he usually finds a way there. Notre Dame, look, it's the best roster in the country. You've got up top with Chris Cav, as we talk about first-team All-American, with Faison, a first-team All-American, with Will Lynch at the face-off, one of the best face-off guys in the country. Will Donovan, long stick midi, All-American type guy. With Sean Light, one of the best in the country. They'll have to figure out goalie, but when does Notre Dame usually not have a good goalie? So there's just so much talent there that they have. And the last one is Princeton. The experience is a fair question, and some key pieces I do think you kind of ask yourself, can they elevate to maybe Final Four level? Goalie with John Fricaro going out of North Carolina. Can someone step in there and take things up a bit? Gio stepped in for Eric Peters. It was pretty great. Can they keep that line going? Face-off for Princeton has been an adventure at times for the last couple of years. Can they get great face-off play? Their shorties have been great for the last couple of years. Do they have Marquez White out the door? Tommy Barnes, different guys, that are out the door now. Do they have Final Four level shorty play, the rope unit? Their defense should still be rock solid with Molshine, Michael Bath. We know the talent on the offensive end. So much young talent returning, but there is some talent in terms of experience and some key pieces. I just think when you have that much talent, that will probably be peaking. I'm going to bet on it. This could have been Syracuse as well, with how well-rounded they figured to be. Could have been Virginia with a large track record. Could be a lot of different teams in that spot. Those are the four I'm going with. Kirst, two-time winner. Coach of the Year. I'm doubling up on Coach of the Year in Dark Horse, which is probably a bad decision for me. I've done this before, and it's laid egg on my face. But I didn't want to do the National Champion Coach of the Year thing. I wanted to be a little bold out there. And also after that, I'm just like, well, if I don't do National Champion as Coach of the Year, I don't do Dark Horse as Coach of the Year, I didn't really know where to go. I guess I could have done Madeline, but he's already made a Final Four, so I didn't really quite know what to do with it. So I went with one of my Dark Horses is Colgate. We talked about them on the pod as a Dark Horse team that we're high on. I really like the Raiders. Going into 2025. Colgate was a team that went from winning. I think they were either dead last or pretty close to the basement of the Patriot League in 2023, and they had a really, really strong 2024 season, finishing with, I want to say, 8 wins. Yes, 8-7. They went from 2-9 to 8-7, and it wasn't a fluke 8-7. They beat Penn State. They beat an Albany team that made the NCAA tournament. They beat Army, and their losses were competitive losses. They lost to BU by 1 goal, back-to-back to end the season. They lost to 2 goals to the Lehigh team that made the NCAA tournament out of the Patriot League. And this team has some hitters, man. Hunter Druin, who made our All-America team. Max Yates made our All-America team. This is a team that can fills the cup up, in terms of offense. Face-off is a real weakness for this team, probably the weakness for this team in terms of them being able to make the NCAA tournament. If they can figure that out, relieve some pressure on themselves on the defensive end, I think this team that can take another step. And I think if this team takes another step in the Patriot League, a Patriot League that certainly I think could be really competitive again. You have Lehigh, and there's the incumbent. You have Army that has the best roster. But can Lehigh go back-to-back? It's hard to go back-to-back in the Patriot League. Army has questions they need to answer in terms of being able to win the league. I could see Colgate making a run for it. So I'm just gonna shoot my shot and have Colgate as my dark horse and say, hey, if Colgate makes the NCAA tournament, Matt Carrick would have a hell of an argument for Coach of the Year. So that's where I'm going. Freshman of the Year, I had my eyes on Ben McCarthy, and then Ryan picked me to it. I also had my eyes on Ben Friedman at Yale. Jared Paquette, Hugh Conrad, they're not at fault for anything that's going on with Yale defensively, but Andy Shea, if they need a spark, do you maybe turn to a freshman goalie? Freshman Fogos, you kind of got to look at as young guys, guys who maybe step in and play immediately, and give a spark to a team. Hausman, he's one of the young guys for Virginia who could figure, prominently, one of their young pieces who was not on the, one of the pieces who, pieces who got injured. So could figure to get hurt. It got hurt, and and then so that could increase his role on the offensive side of the ball. Always love reading what Lars has to say about these guys. So Lars said, what meetings will be attending this spring? Would be the offense or the defense. Impress us all on both sides of the ball, splitting the fall across season in half. Short stick defense, midfield focus till mid-October, and then as an open the rest of the way. He anticipates double team opportunities to defender really well, smashing ball carriers, while his bounciness as a dodger allows him to be dangerous as the initiator. So two-way middies in that Virginia system are always guys you got to keep your eye on. They use Joey Terenzi as a guy who played both ways and then got a lot of opportunities to stay on last year on offense, and he had a really strong year. It's kind of like really on a team that lacked depth as a fourth midfielder. He was sort of their depth scoring. I could see Hausman and Jimmy there. And again, on a team that's had injuries now, is he a guy who steps into a larger role? Maybe if he was originally lined up for maybe a defensive type role, is he a guy who is asked, to kind of take that maybe more offensively? And again, being a defensive midfielder in Virginia's system, you still play a ton of offense. So that's one where I'm looking. This is always a tough category for us. I haven't had much success in it. Let's hope for the best in 2025.
And to wrap it up, I too have Notre Dame to win, like Adam. I just think probably the deepest roster, most talented team, two-time defending champion, kind of maybe have the wind to their backs. Potentially UVA and Duke maybe take a step backwards. Don't exactly know where North Carolina is going to be. Syracuse is obviously going to be, I think, pretty strong. So there may be a challenge in the ACC, but I think Notre Dame's going to be able to take care of business in both out of conference and in conference play, and they'll be holding the trophy in May. At least that's my prediction. Like you guys, I got Maryland, Cornell, and Princeton. I think, Jake, we almost have the same exact Final Four setup, except, you have Cornell winning and I have Notre Dame. Ryan, we're just off with you because you have Virginia instead of Princeton. But a lot of uniformity here. I think we noted it last week, Jake. Adams, kind of the one outsider with the pick of Johns Hopkins. I guess Virginia has some questions as well, but pretty much everyone's got the triumvirate of Notre Dame, Maryland, and Cornell in there with a potential, the fourth spot being a little bit different for all of us. Like you two gentlemen, fine gentlemen, I too have CJ Kirst as my Towards Award winner. I think he's going into the season with, a lot of motivation, obviously having that stellar year in 2022, a couple snake bit end of the seasons in 2023 and 2024, resulting in an early exit in 2023 and not making the tournament in 2024. But I think Cornell's got a loaded lineup. I think GJ is going to lead the way for them. My coach of the year, Coach Corrigan. I think it's a wrap if they win it again, even if it's not the another one loss in regular season. It could be like multiple losses. If they win again and he wins 3 titles in a row, they're going to give it to him. And rightfully should. Jake, with you, kind of never have that great of a freshman of the year pick. I too went with Houseman. I told you, I felt maybe Spencer Ford, but then you gave me the heads up that he may not be, I don't know, redshirting at all, but maybe not be playing as much. So just went with Hudson. My dark horse, though, gentlemen, it's happening this year. The Ohio State Buckeyes, again, not the greatest season last year, but they were really stout defensively. Had, we don't like moral victories here, but, they had some pretty good appearances against Notre Dame and Denver, two, Final Four teams, lost by a combined 6 to them. The Penn State game, the start of the Big Ten was, a loss, and they won Rutgers. But, finishing out the rest of the Big Ten slate, they lost 3 games by 1 in each game with an overtime loss, and Hopkins included in there. So I always kind of have that in my mind. If a team's bringing a good amount back, had some disappointing, but like kind of were there. Record maybe like a little bit better than what their record show. You are what your record is at the end of the day, but I always kind of feel like that's a way that maybe propel them into next year. So I'm going there with Ohio State. I think Nick Myers needs to kind of show something. The offense could still, be a point of contention or a weak spot for them. But defensively, I think it's not outlandish to say. I guess maybe Hopkins, given especially how many preseason All-Americans we have, 3, the defense-orientated players as All-Americans. I think you could still make a case that Ohio State has, maybe at worst the second best defense and potentially the best defense in the Big Ten. Definitely got a good guy, good goal, good person and goalie, and I think, like I said, I think this is the year they got to do something and say, I don't know exactly the temperature of Nick Myers' seat, but you just can't, being left behind is a little too harsh. But as we kind of said, every team in the Big Ten has kind of had their moment in the sun with either a Final Four experience or Michigan being able to, get into the tournament back to back. And kind of finally like break out. But Ohio State seems to be a little bit dormant since their great 2017 run, and I think maybe this is the year they make a little bit of noise, get maybe a potential top 2 seed in the Big Ten. And
that's it.
And then, hey, if you're one of the best teams in the Big Ten, like you're going to be probably one of the top 10 teams in the country, as we said. Like that's probably potentially a top 8. I can see a quarterfinal run at Ohio State.
I hope so. I mean, like, dark horse,
A lot of people are saying this, Jake. A lot of people are saying this. It's the dawn of a new golden age.
The Ohio State and North Carolina Final Four semifinal will be something.
If it's Ohio State, Notre Dame,
Belichick and Day talking on the sidelines.
Come find me if it's Ohio State, Notre Dame Memorial Day Monday.
I might.
I'd be a happy guy.
Where's that meme that from Shogun where it's like, I assume you'll commit seppuku at once. that'll be me.
So Mark noticed you guys have Cornell, Maryland, and Notre Dame as unanimous Final Four picks. Scattered other picks are Hopkins, Princeton, and UVA. I am really shocked that no one picked Cuse. That's really the story to me. Again, I'm a pessimistic Syracuse fan. And until they actually make a Final Four again, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Safe didn't pick you. Safe, no Hopkins picked from Safe.
Now we have Adam's unguided optimism on Hopkins that slowly turns into an absolute.
I'm still recovering from that Virginia game, Jake.
That really did a number. That was.
That did some damage.
Safe picked Hopkins to make a Final Four in a year where they won like 4 games.
That is true.
Was that one of the first million runs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just a year early because the next year they were 11-3, right? So
no, the next year they won like 8-8.
Like 2 years. I think it was the 8-8 season. Did I get the Final Four that?
I'm gonna go back and.
So while you do that, at least Adam's sticking to his brand of complete optimism of Hopkins, thinking that everyone else is gonna suck, but Hopkins will be great, and everything's gonna be great. And then by mid-season, he wants everybody fired and transferred out of Baltimore.
Safe had Hopkins.
It's the greatest. It's the greatest arc every year with Adam.
In 2023, he did not pick him in 2023. No.
Yeah. I think I went 11-3 2023, but not Final Four. 2020. I'm looking at the 2022 predictions now. I did have it in the Final Four.
2022, they won 8-8, didn't they?
That was a strong 8-8, Jake.
And then 2021.
Everything else was really good that year, though. Maryland to win, Logan for Tuarton.
I think I picked Loyola to make the Final Four of the year. Damn. Well, not great.
Utah, my dark horse. Yeah, that was everything about that Hopkins pick. I stand by.
No. 2022 was 2021 was that was the man, I was so close to nailing it that year. 2021 was the COVID year. Me and Safe had Maryland. Adam had Denver. Ryan and Chris had Duke.
None of us were right.
Safe had Duke, Maryland, UNC, and Georgetown. I had Duke, Maryland, Virginia, and Georgetown. Adam had Duke, Denver, UNC, and Georgetown. Ryan had Duke, UNC, Maryland, Georgetown. And Chris had Duke, Denver, Syracuse, and Maryland.
Georgetown letting us down is kind of the common theme there.
Safe pick Chris Gray, and the rest of us picked Sowers. Who won it that year? Bernhardt. But hey, Liz, I had that Bernhardt call. Coach of the year. Safe had Warren. Who won? Did Warren win it that year? He might have. They probably gave it to Lars that year.
Warren.
Did Warren win it that year?
Yeah.
21?
Head coach of Georgetown. Warren
Look at that save. Let's go.
That's it.
Nailed it. And Adam and Ryan had that as well. Great job, boys. Nailed it. Freshman of the year. Safe and Adam picked Brendan Grimes. Chris picked Owen Hiltz. Ryan picked Cole Herbert.
The infamous pick.
I picked this guy by the name of Brennan O'Neill.
Talk about you as a soothsayer, Jake.
Not bad. Our dark horse team. Safe had Notre Dame. What a sick guy. Safe's dark horse team. I think we need to go back and just look at Safe's dark horse team.
There's other great ones. There's some great ones.
Didn't have Syracuse. That was a good pick.
Yes, Safe's dark horse team.
Yes, Syracuse had it
was Notre Dame. So let's just do this. Safe's dark horse team in comparison to their ranking in the IL Media Poll.
Preseason poll or final poll?
No, I'm like Safe the dark horse and how they are ranked in the media poll. You know, because like it's a dark horse. It's Safe. You know?
These plucky upstarts from the ACC and Big Ten.
All right. So in 2021, Notre Dame in the preseason media poll was ranked. See if I can find it. Notre Dame was ranked 8th. Safe had them as his dark horse team. The rest of us went with St. Joe's, Delaware, Stony Brook, and Richmond.
Yeah, let's just do the dark horses that we did through the years.
In 2022, Safe's dark horse team was Utah. Okay, listen, that was integrity, honest, ethical,
Hardworking,
an ethical pick,
honest,
dark horse, an ethical dark horse,
sustainable.
In the 2022 preseason poll, Utah was not ranked. I don't even know if they received a vote.
Well, I have 2023 up.
Who was his preseason dark horse 2023?
Providence.
Yeah. See what happened was the Providence thing didn't work, so he went back to Syracuse.
And then last year was the Syracuse dark horse. Yes, last year, in safe zone words, and safe, correct me if I'm wrong, scrappy Syracuse.
I think it was also dark horse in the
underdog program.
Dark horse in the ACC. What is or his words as well.
It's just 500-foot dingers, just bombs, or pop up to short with my dark horse.
I think I just rotate between Harvard and Richmond because I had Richmond last year. I had Harvard in 23. And 2022, I had Yale as my dark horse.
I had 2023. I had Jacksonville. Jesus, this is what's gonna happen. Last 2023 when Jacksonville and Galloway as coach of the year. I don't even remember what Jacksonville did that year. I couldn't tell you. No clue. It's gonna be a disaster. 2022, I went with dark horse Bryant. I don't know what Bryant did that year. I don't know how that went. Ryan's dark horse that year was Yale. That was fair. I mean, they were. No one really knew what to. Still only a little bit.
Expect out of the Ivy League that year, so.
2022 went with Maryland as my national champion and Tillman as coach of the year. Nailed that one. Yeah, I picked Loyola to make the Final Four in 2022. Felt better.
God, we were all high on Georgetown. All five of us picked Georgetown to make the Final Four.
In 22?
Whoop. In 22, yep.
They won 15-1 in the regular season. I mean,
we were on it.
To be fair, yeah.
If it was for Delaware, we may have nailed that one.
They should have. They were the number 2 seed.
Yeah,
we're so good.
We were on something, but at the same time, not on something.
Like, come
the
on,
paradox of morning.
That should have been them losing to Maryland in the championship.
It really should have.
There is a nobility in dying. So what's that? Quote
a good death is its own reward from Batman versus Superman.
If it's a lie, we're gonna die on that lie.
Oh, Slim, of course. Yes. Well, we gotta fight.
Now 2023, just
go ask Dave Cottle. If he'd rather have lost by 10 goals to Virginia in 06 than lose to UMass in 5-4. Man never got a job in college after 2010. And if he had lost to Virginia, he probably would have got a contract extension.
Die hard, right? Like any given Sunday, Jim Brown says, "You die hard."
God, I'm gonna watch that before the game Sunday. That's gonna be my pregame. It's gonna be my pregame for.
I might throw on Friday Night Lights.
My pregame for Commanders Eagles is gonna be is Anger Sunday. Be Al Pacino. For that inch.
2023 was interesting. 2023 was interesting because only Adam and Chris was on to Notre Dame cooking something. Too much actually, I have some bad news to tell Big Red fans. Guess who my national champ was in 2023?
2023, I went too far with trying to own the haters. I spent a whole year just reading the mentions of Notre Dame fans and people in my mentions after Selection Sunday, and
that strategy backfired.
Probably should have just logged off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in 2024, granted, I was the only person to pick Notre Dame to make the Final Four. So
It's true. We kind of doubled down on it. Like, there's no way they can do this again, proving us wrong and everything. What's the drill tweet?
Go on. Was it keep yelling at me to log off?
No. Good call by no. It was not actually. It was not a drill tweet.
Oh, it's the
great call from the
hater.
Yeah.
The hater said I couldn't.
The hater said I couldn't do it, and they were correct. Honestly, great call from the haters.
Great call by the haters.
We doubled down. Sure enough, pick Penn State and Army and Duke in my Final Four. Woo-wee. And to be fair, last year was like the first time I ever hit on Freshman of the Year, so.
Nate was a good pick.
It was. I'll go.
All right, well, we'll just about do it for preview. So next week we'll start the regular episodes. Jake and Safe will work the weeknight ones, and I'll hop on for the Saturday night power hours. Before we go, though, again, rivalry weekend. Conference championships, Commanders, Eagles.
Go Birds.
Left hand up.
Good, it's the left
Dean
hand.
Daniels did make me money, Jake. He did make me. I'll leave it at that. I went big. I was like, yeah, Commanders win, 2 touchdowns, 250. I cashed out that one early just because you took the money. Commanders to win, but I let a $10 bet for Jaden 300, 2 touchdowns, and Commanders win, and Jaden was 1 yard short. That's the only one I let ride because I was like, oh, maybe you can pull this one off. So hopefully they lose, obviously this week, but maybe the cover and the Eagles win the money line. That's my NFL hat, wearing the Rob Lowe bet. Like Commanders cover, Eagles win. Jaden, best rookie season ever. Eagles make the Super Bowl. I think, at least for me, I think that's a fair deal. So.
Take it all.
I have no meaning in the game. I guess out of the 4 teams left, I would like to see the Commanders. Out of the 4, that'd be kind of hilarious.
Even the Bills, the New York's only state football team?
No. Okay.
Yeah. New York's only state football team.
All the freaking bandwagon Bills fans. Oh, the New York State's only team. My brother in Christ, it's on the Canadian border on the opposite side of the state. It's 9 hours away.
They've been playing footsie with Toronto for like the last decade.
Yeah. The Eagles are closer. The Patriots are closer. The Ravens are closer. The Commanders are closer. The Steelers are closer.
Ryan's a big fan of
territorial integrity.
Ryan loves the
geography
part. Stadium like parking complexes. He really got into the whole Meadowlands. The way they designed that thing, yeah. Yeah.
But I'd have more respect for you if you just said the Jets and Giants suck. I'm rooting for the Bills because they win things. I'd respect you more than doing this whole spiel of, oh, they're New York State's only team. They're nowhere near here. They're 9 hours away. Yeah, I know my tax money's going to paying for their new stadium, but they're 9 hours away.
I really one point on this. That new stadium is not going to be like anywhere near as cool as Ralph Wilson Stadium is. Ralph Wilson Stadium, that's a real.
I could see it being very loud because all the stands are going to be covered, so it might work like Seattle where it's very loud. But you're right, Ralph Wilson just like has that aura to it. It's like you're here for football in the snow. Here you go.
Yeah. I know Ryan's. He loves his, trip, just driving off, the turnpike and, just
MetLife Stadium.
Seeing those big ass concrete, MetLife Stadium.
God, Hey, it's host of the World Cup final.
That's true.
No other stadium can say that they're hosting the World Cup final.
Wait, Buffalo
The
is
biggest-
really only the World Cup.
biggest
No,
sporting event in the world.
MetLife
I was
Stadium.
like, yeah, it's like, why are they doing? No.
New York market. Remember,
Still, yeah.
MetLife Stadium first ever event was lacrosse. 2010 Big City Classic.
It does own that Buffalo is going to have a nicer NFL stadium than the Giants or the Jets.
I feel like there's 30 other teams that have a nicer stadium than.
I mean, fair, but like, it's hilarious that they built a new stadium in New Jersey or whatever right before the trend of palatial. I don't know if they're good, but they're, I guess.
But I mean, MetLife and AT&T Stadium came at like the wrong time. Like they were going very futuristic, and then the trends went away from futuristic.
MetLife isn't even futuristic. It's nothing. It just what is it? It's a concrete box. They never should have got rid of Giant Stadium.
Giant Stadium was still on a stage, but
like they should have just redone Giant Stadium exactly as it was. Like it's
Stay in Jersey. I'm fine with that. I mean, the original.
Well, there's no place to put a football stadium in New York City, so yeah, Jersey works.
Just like what are we doing here, y'all? Like, it's a football stadium right off the freaking
Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah, just like build, a dump. You belong to this. You should play in a dump. Like, come on, what are we talking about here? Like, come on. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on. Like, Giant Stadium had some character.
It had the ramps. MetLife Stadium, you have to go up and down escalators every time you're moving to a different part of the concourse.
I miss stadiums with character. RFK Stadium, that was a dump. That was a piece of ass. But
now we're going on to a tangent. List of current NFL stadiums. I mean, I guess MetLife's better than Bank of America Stadium.
Sure. Who cares about Bank of America Stadium?
Or Everbank Stadium. Well, I don't know. Everbank Stadium, since they got the pool in there. But it is kind of funny, though, that NFL stadiums have, like, nowhere near, like, how MLB ballparks, everything's unique and everything. NFL stadiums are just like, some of them are bowls.
Right.
Some of them.
I'm gonna say thank you everyone for coming. Becky Lynch for president, and end this stream before we just this is awesome.
We'll be here next
Wednesday. Like and
subscribe. Stay hydrated. Follow us at college_cross on Twitter. Additionally, like and subscribe here on the YouTube. Subscribe on your favorite podcast outlet. Stay hydrated.
We're gonna spend another hour talking about this, so we're gonna be in the studio till me and Ryan are gonna be in the studio for till midnight talking about these freaking
stadiums.
NFL stadiums. So until we go crazy with this, I'm gonna
call it a night.
Thank you for joining us.
Go Birds,
cheers, folks. Left hand up. Me and Safe will be back Wednesday or Tuesday, sometime midweek, with the preview show. Y'all are great. Like and subscribe. Stay hydrated, folks.
Stay hydrated.